Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you a game designed by Michael Kiesling by the name of Sanssouci. And this is a terrific family game in which players are going to be playing German architects who are essentially going to be designing fabulous gardens for the nobles in 18th century Germany. And the way this is going to work is that players are going to have a number of cards which will allow them to draw tiles from a communal pool of tiles, and then they'll place them in their gardens and allow their nobles to explore those gardens. So I'll take a minute to show you how the game works, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on it. So this is what the setup of a game of Sanssouci is going to look like. Essentially, there's going to be this scoring track and tile drafting area that all players will be pulling tiles from, and then each player is going to have one of these private gardens where they're going to be placing those tiles and moving their nobles to score. This game does come with an in-box expansion, which just gives you more variety and scoring opportunities. Essentially, players are going to get dealt one of these at random and be able to place it on either side in their garden. And I'll explain how that works in a moment. Players will also be given 2 hidden cards that they're going to keep in secret that give them missions. Essentially, these will just correspond to the various columns on each player's board, and they just mean that this player will score these 2 features twice. So they'll score their fountain column and their hedge maze column twice at the end of the game, and they just keep those secret. Then players will be given also 2 cards to start with from a deck of 18 personal cards. All players are going to play through all 18 of those, and then at the end of that will be the end of the game. And the players are going to just get 2 per round. They'll play one, then draw another one until they've gone through the deck. So these cards are going to show one of 2 things. Either they'll show a specific feature, which means that you could play this card to draw, for example, a statue from this area. There's only one statue here, so they would have to take that one. Or they could be used to take a specific color. So here you could take from the purple or the white areas. So the way that turn works in this game, all you're going to do, like I said, is play a card. So here, this player might play this purple and white card, and then they would be able to take a tile from purple and white. Let's say they took this rock formation, and then they have to place it in the rock formation column in the white row. It's very scripted as far as what you could do with the tiles that you take. After they've placed a tile, they have the option to advance one of their noblemen down through their garden. And the further they advance down, the more points they're going to score. You notice that the rows are labeled 1 through 6. If you'd advance this guy all the way down here to the 3, and he can't go any further because the garden is not yet built any further than that, so he could go down to here, but he would not be able to go to this empty space. Some of the spaces, you note, are pre-built on your player board. But in any case, he went to the 3rd row, he would score 3 points. He'd never be able to move back up unless it was to basically track around. If there was a path, let's just say here, that was built, this nobleman would be able to go over and down to here. They could skip a space in that way, and then he would score the 5 points. But again, once he scored the 5 points, he'd never be able to move back up and score 3 points if he'd skipped that space. So that's essentially all you're going to be doing during a course of a turn. So then after you've refilled this area here, you'll draw another card. In this case, this player's drawn the wild card. That means you could take any card from the display, or any tile from the display rather. So now on their next turn, the player might want to, let's see, I guess I could take this opportunity to show you. Let's just say they played this to take this tile. This would not be the best move, but you could see it's another white tile because I took it from the white area, and it's another rock formation. If ever you take a tile that matches another tile that you've already placed in your area, you could use it as a gardener. So you would flip it over like that, and you can see all the tiles on their back have a gardener depicted on them. And those, you essentially look at where that tile would be placed, which is here, and they could be placed anywhere within the row or within the column of that space where it should have gone. So this one could go here. You would never be able to move a gardener, so it would land its space on a gardener. So this guy would not be able to move here and score 4 points. But then for my optional movement, I could bring this guy down and around through that space, and then he could stop on this space here and score 4 points, because he was able to basically trace a path down to that space. So some of the other special features in this game, I'll just take a moment to refill, would include these spaces. Again, this is an expansion, but generally you're going to want to play with it because it's not much more complex. And these, the way that these work is if ever you would place a tile immediately onto one of those spaces, so this requires a steps, this would require steps, they just require whatever is in their normal column, you would get the bonus points that are depicted there. So this would be +3, +2, +2, +1, +1. And the same thing goes if you place gardeners in these spaces that depict a gardener, you would get +3 points. And then finally, there are some of these that show negative points. If ever you place a tile on those, which might be necessary to complete your routes, you would lose the -2 or the -3 points as depicted on there. So basically that's how the game's going to go. It's going to go for 18 rounds. You're going to be slowly advancing these guys down further and further. At the end of the game, for any of your columns that you've completed, you'll get a bonus 5 points. You will score, again, the 2 figures in these depicted columns. So if I had this guy here, I would just score an additional 1 point. If I had a guy down here on this fountain, let's just say it built there, he would score again. So just your mission cards will score out. For the rows, from rows 2 through 6, for every completed row, you'll get the value of the row, 10 minus the value of the row in bonus points. So although you generally want to advance your guys further down to the bottom, if you happen to complete the second row, that would be worth 10 minus 2 or 8 points. Whereas the bottom row getting complete would only be worth 4 points because 6 from 10 is 4 points. So at the end of the game, you will score, like I said, your bonus cards, your rows and your column bonuses, plus you'll add that to any points that you scored during the game for moving your nobles, and the player with the most points will be the winner. Alright, so that is Sanssouci, and this game, I don't believe I said before, is for 2 to 4 players. It plays in about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes for ages 8 and up. And as you can see, it's really a game that, constricts your actions pretty tightly, but it does allow for some creative play in how you're going to manipulate those restrictions into scoring the most points. The game, like I said, I believe during the run through it, you should always pretty much play with that expansion just because it adds a little bit more decision making into the game. But as it is, it's really terrific, and I've had a lot of fun playing this game, with many people, and generally it goes over really well. I think each player gets caught up in what they're doing. They tend not to pay too much attention to other players, which is fine if you don't mind that being a mostly solitaire experience. There is some mild player interaction insofar as you could look at that board and you could try and draft tiles that you think other players might be going for, but generally this is really just trying to do the best on your own, which is typical, I think, of a lot of family Euro games. So overall, I think that the game, it looks nice. It gives you a nice sense of satisfaction for doing your building over the course of your game. You feel like you've accomplished something at the end of it, which is always nice in a game. And generally, I've found that the scores tend to be pretty tight. So I don't think that's just a question of luck, but it does mean that generally most people will feel that they're in it toward the end of the game even, which is nice. So overall, this is a game that I've really enjoyed playing. I would recommend it, and it's readily available. So it was I believe published in 2013 by Ravensburger, but it took maybe until like 2014 or 2015 to make it to the US, but it is now available in the US, so I'd recommend giving it a shot. So those are my thoughts on Sanssouci.